What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and finally we are done for this season for the events, team events, Spring Fest and Autumn Fest, so the World Championship. I didn't get a qualifier towards, but I got some top 8s and I have some amazing deck profiles for you guys. We as a team have had an amazing season. We have had tops with from our newest member to Varian being able to qualify for Worlds, to a Glacian, which was able to become the Shaman King. So yeah, we have had some amazing tournaments, and in this video, it's finally time to show you the 2 decks or 3 from different formats that I played in this season, and to talk about them for a while. The tournament itself, or the tournaments in general, we will talk about those as well, but there is a lot to talk about when it comes to that. But now it's all about the deck profile. So this would be a long ass deck profile, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. You could skip through it because I will put these skip times into it. I will show you different things how you could do, and it would be a 2-parted video. So maybe even a 3-parted video. The first part is the part where I show you the deck profile. The second part is when I show you a combo. And the third part is when I show you a game of this deck being played. So first we will do premium. So we start from premium, then we go to V, and then go to D. For premium, I play a Rush Turbo GB8 build. You understand? Rush Turbo GB8 build. Rush Turbo GB8 build means that the deck is very flexible. It could rush the opponent, but it could also go defensive. And if it goes defensive, then it will, let's say, put your opponent from 1 damage to 6 in 1 turn, but the opponent will have a bigger chance to damage check and overtrigger. If you rush them to, let's say, a 3 or a 4 damage, especially 4, then you will be able to hit them with force 2. You could also put them at 2 damage, and with 2 damage they go 2, then they go 4, and then they stop there, because if they take a damage, that would have to be a miracle heal or an overtrigger. But the problem to that is that they would have 2 chances to get the overtrigger or a meal added to the 2 chances they already have. I will explain. So before we get into deck profile, it's very important to understand how to look at these sleeves. Damn. This has a story. I will tell it to you, but not now. So if you go GB8, right, you have the force 2 marker chilling on the fields. It's important to know, if you have your opponent chilling at 1 damage, you will hit them with 2, then 2 again. So they have 4 chances to get in overtrigger. After that, they will take 2 damage at the same time, so they go to 6, 7. Even if they miracle heal or an overtrigger, you will still kill them. Or they would need a miracle heal and an overtrigger, or a double miracle heal. But that's a little bit too much. So doing them 1 damage is actually not that good, because they have lots of chances to hit the overtrigger. So what you want to do is actually you want to at least hit them with 2 damage. If you hit them with 2 damage, they will have to take 2, and then they could not take a damage there, because if they do, they die, or they would have to miracle heal or an overtrigger. If you want to do it even better, what you do is, so they take 2 damage, so they have 2 chances for that. If you want to do it even better, you will hit them with 3 damage. If you hit them with 3 damage, they would go take 1 and go to 5. So they would take only 1 attack, and then they go to 5 already, and then they have less chance of over triggering. So you want to do 2 or 3. That's basically the idea behind it. Now, before we explain the turboing and how you turbo, we actually just have to show you the deck. So now we start deck profile. For the grade 3s, we play 4 copies of Rising Nova, basically for giving you the double marker. That's the whole reason he's here. Then we add in 4 copies of Juggernaut Maximum. This is the one that you ride into before you get into your GB8 turn. When you hit your GB8 turn, you will jump into Rising. And last but definitely not least, we add the 4 copies of Jelly Beans, which will help us to turbo into the GB8. So these are your grade 3s. Right, so we will not explain them right here. We will jump into the grade 2s, and after that we'll come back and explain them. So for you guys that only want to know the deck list, you could know it. For the grade 2s, we have 4 copies of Spike Bouncer, added 4 copies of Breach, and 2 copies of Fiona. First, I played 3. Now, I did find 2 is enough. Are there other options? Again, we will go into that later. But for now, this is how the deck looks like, as in the grade 2s. Alright, so we go to the grade 1s. The grade 1s are actually very, very, very interesting, as in you play lots and lots of Crane Elementals. So, Rolock, Tier, also at 4, and then the 2 copies of Honolulu and 1 grade 1 PG from the D series. So we actually don't play any Spike Brother units, actual Spike Brother unit. I will explain to you later how you could change it around. So 4 Relock, 4 Tier, 2 Honolulu, and 1 PG, grade 1 PG. Then for the grade 0s, we start with Mega Trainer being, of course, the starter. Then we add in the 4 heals that we add to Mega Trainer. And then we play a bunch of draws. So we go into 8 vanilla draws and 3 draw PGs. And then the over trigger in this case is the Crane Mental one, which I will also explain later why it is this one. Alright. For the Stride deck or extra deck, we play 2 copies of Vinance Ace. Then we add in 2 copies of the GB8. We add in 1 Galley Gabrius, 1 Formios, 1 Formido, 2 Marindals. G Guardians, Variegaton, 1 DS Meal, 1 of the new Queen. This card is amazing. I just call her Queen. Evita is the name, I think. Yeah, Evita. Queen Evita. Okay, then we have one Reggaeton, of course, and then we add in the 3 beautiful SPs of the Treble Linus. Alright, so this is the deck. This is what we play. Now let's explain it. We need a lot of explanation. So let's go back to the grade 3s. First of all, the skills, and then second of all, the options, and then third, we will add in also what would you take out and what would you put in. So first, the 4 copies of Rising Nova. Rising Nova is an amazing card. The second ability of Nova to target units you don't really use in this deck, although you could use it on the Juggernaut Maximum if you want to. If you really want to hurt your opponent in the early game, you could do that. But most importantly, you actually just use it for the giving the marker. So the Nova ability, the first part of the ability is when you ride it, you don't have to choose between Force 1 and Force 2. You just say Force 3. So you just, you actually just get double the marker. You get Force 1 and Force 2. And that's what you want to do. You actually just want to ride into the Juggernaut maximum. Keep riding into it until you are able to hit the GB8 turn. And when you hit the GB8 turn, you go double the marker. And that's how you actually be able to hit your opponent. And with having Force 1, you control the amount of damage your opponent have. So you could pretty much put him to 2 or 3. It's pretty up to you. It's not up to them to take the Force 2 and take the Force 1 or whatever. So that's why having Force 1 is better in the early game. Alright, so that's it for Nova. Then we go into the Juggernaut Maximum. Juggernaut Maximum is a very important card. The second ability of Nova, you already know it, but you don't really use it in this deck that much, as I said, is to Soul Blast 1 target 2 grade 3s and he get their ability, and that's what you could use on Maximum if you have to. This does work even in Link Joker, or in the Link Joker matchup if you have to, but then you have to move the Marcos to your Vanguard. So maximum right here is important because of his first ability. The first ability, if your opponent's on grade 3 at the beginning of every main phase, every card that you put on the fields gets plus 5k shield, 5k power, which means that every guardian you put on a guardian circle get 5k shield, which means with a big hand you could survive the multi-attacking turns of Pale Moon, Aqua Force, whatever clans. Yeah, it's an important card and very good. It's very defensive card. The second ability is, of course, if you have placed 4 or more units this turn, you Soul Blast 3. When he attacks, you restand the column. If you restand the Vanguard column, you return your field to the bottom of the deck at the end of the turn, and your Vanguard loses drive check. Which is, again, good to use in the early game if you really want to hurt your opponent. And then last but not least, we play the 4 copies of Jelly Beans. Jelly Beans, you put them back to your deck, you search your deck for a Dudley card, which is a grade 2 or less, but basically you normally just go and search to your heal trigger. And with that, you will be able to turbo. Other options to put in the grade 3s. Well, of course, we have the Pistol Boy. He is amazing to get rid of cards like Honolly, the grade 3 from Link Joker, the grade 3 from the Brand Gate, which played most of the time in DP. And yeah, problematic cards. If you play against a certain Giza deck, you could take it out. For example, back in the days when we have Angel Giza, now we have multiple, sometimes the Giza crazy decks. This guy could help you out. Whatever deck that you're playing is that you need a little bit of control, he could help you out. Second option is, of course, Skydiver. Skydiver is a very good card, and it does help you to set up cards back to your deck, the cards that you need for your GB8 turn, or even during your GB8 turn, you could use him. It's a card that I don't play in this deck because I want to be able to ride into a consistent at least 2 max before I go into Rising. So that's the reason why I play this much. But I could take a Rising Nova out to play one of these and all of these. Not a maximum, but I take a Nova out. So it's more of a maximum deck right now, actually. Alright, so now we go to the grade 2s. Breach is the card that is the one that makes the loop of the GB8 such strong loop that it's kinda almost infinite. This is between you and me, guys. Don't tell Bushido this ever, but the GB8 build, this deck could actually make up to 30-35 attacks if you go GB8 first stride and you have enough cards in your deck. Sometimes it's not even up to amount of cards you have in your hand, but up to amount of cards you have left in your deck as on how much attacks you could make. And it's crazy and insane, and some of you guys will be like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Well, as I said, this deck is insane. Then we have, this is our grade 2 lineup. So let's start with Breach again. Breach has the ability that when he attacks Vanguard, you put a card from your drop zone in normal units to the bottom of your deck, and if you do, all of your opponent's rare cards with intercept must intercept if they can, so not cards in the back row that could not. Now, this is a card that will make the Dementia Police player cry if they have those grade 3s in the front row, because they have to intercept with them, and with that they lose timing of using the ability. So yeah, important strong card. And then at the end of the battle, it goes into your soul and you draw a card. Very important to understand that him going into the soul is not a cost, but part of the ability. So if you use the skill of the GB8 first to put this and a card from your hand into your soul to call something new, then you still get to draw a card. And this is the reason why this card is so insanely good with the GB8. Then we have the 4 copies of Spike Bouncer. Spike Bouncer, the moment he came out, we all knew how good this card is in the GB8 deck. Basically, on place, Counter Blast, Soul Blast, check the top 4 because you are chilling on grade 4. You search one upon them, call it to Vanguard Circle, not open, but whatever Vanguard Circle. So with this is good to call on the top of units that stayed there, because the GB8 needs open Vanguard Circles to call upon. Very important. And then you put the other three or the rest into the bottom of your deck. The second ability is at the end of the battle, this unit attack. This doesn't have to attack a Vanguard. You counterblast one, you put this unit into your soul and you draw a card. But this one has a cost, which is a counterblast, and putting him into the soul. So this means that you could not put the GB8 skill on him and use the second ability. It's one of the two. But yeah, these two are the reason why you could attack so much in combination with Tyr. Then we have the double Fiona. The double Fiona, I like it a lot, especially in the Minerva matchup, but nowadays it's becoming less and less effective because it doesn't do much in the Chaos matchup, it doesn't do much in the Narukami matchup. There are actually lots of decks that, well, it does something, but it's less effective. But I still like to have it because having a big hand, this could actually make a difference. But there are other options that you could play. If you want to play, you could play Pokur. If you want to, you could play Tiger. Me, myself, I'm a big fan of Tiger. Mayhem Tiger is a great card. You will make less attacks, but you will make stronger, irritating attacks that your opponent would have to deal with. You could also play the promo grade 2. I will show to you the one who doubles the power. That one will hit for higher numbers as well if your opponent keep getting triggers, and if you want to keep them on low damage, then this card is effective. You could play Axe Diver because you have a Rising Vanguard to create extra attacks, and he does Counterblast and Soul Blast. Soul Blasting is important in this deck. You need to Soul Blast. You could play Double Summoner for the random extra attack and the early game that you don't want to hit. But again, the deck did change. Now you do want to hit. Now you do want to put your opponent on a little bit of a higher damage. So there are some different cards that you could play, but basically these are the most important. And for these, if I'm not playing in a tournament setting, I would actually rather play the Mayhem Tiger, because I am a big fan of Mayhem Tiger. And if you play against friends, you just don't want a Fiona then, because it's just not as fun. But yeah, again, in a competitive setting, I do understand the Fiona option. Alright, so now we get to the great ones. So for the great ones, of course, to survive the early game and not having to discard in the early game, especially if you play against some decks that could pretty much ride up and then ride down, then you actually would love to have this card in your deck. Being a 7k means he hits beneath the opponent's Vanguard. Having a 10k shield makes it 15 with the Juggernaut. Lots of things that makes this card really good. So yeah, actually 4 copies of him I do find important to have in this deck, and the same goes for Tyr. Tyr is basically the most important great one you have in your deck. What you want to do is you want to soul charge as much breaches as you can and leave one in the deck, and then go Tyr, soul blast those two to keep recycling the loop that you do with your breach. And then you keep going back to Spike Monster to Soul Blast the breach. I will show it to you again in another video, but basically the deck is getting insane with the amount of attacks you could make. 4 tiers. Lerouk, if we go back to his ability, if you don't know what he does, basically when this unit is placed on the Guardian Circle, if your Vanguard is less than grade 3. So if it's a grade 2 or less, one of your units cannot be hit until the end of battle. And the good thing about this is it said unit, so you could still even guard a rear guard with it if you want to. The most important thing is that you need not to be at grade 3 or higher, so grade 2 or less. That's it. And then it's just a PG without discarding a card. And Tyr is on play, Soul Blast 2, choose a card from your damage zone and flip it face up for every Clay Elemental you have in your G zone. So it's a counter charger for every Clay Elemental. But not only counter-charging, he's a Soul Blaster. The Soul Blast 2 is very important. If it was Soul Blast 3, I would be even happier. Then we play the 2 copies of Honoli. This card, a lot of people were like, it's just not the right format to play it. I agree and disagree. Being a cute rabbit is nice. Being a 6k is nice. Having the ability is nice as well, because this is important and it could work. There are some decks that could work around it, but having a double Honolly on the field could be problematic before even Aqua Force because they need a second Tavos, and it's not that easy sometimes. They have to sometimes to go into different route. For Pill Moon, the same. They need a double Counter Blast to get rid of both, but with only one, they could only get rid of one. But there are some other decks that would have trouble against this. And that's the reason why he's in here. Even in the Spike Brother matchup, he is actually quite good. And last but not least, we play one of the Grade 1 PGs. There is a reason why I don't play the Order. The Order is not a Cray Elemental, which means you could not search it with Mega Trainer. Mega Trainer could search whatever, but Mega Trainer's search is Cray Elementals or Spike Brothers, because Cray Elementals count as Spike Brother cards. But if a card doesn't have a clan or a nation, like this, or the older Order cards that were black, you remember those black Order cards? Mega Trainer will not be able to search those because they do not. They are not in a clan or a nation. So because of that, they are not spikes. So that's one of the reasons why I don't want to play this card, because I could not search it to the hand with Mega Trainer. And with that, sometimes I would have to search a PG to the hand, and then I will be searching a draw trigger. But I would rather leave the draw trigger in my deck, so that's why I play him. The other reason is that you could ride into the Grade 1 PG, and it's a 6k, so that's good. But you could not ride into this one. So if you have this in your hand, but with your first hand, but you don't have a Grade 1, sometimes you have to put this back to mulligan. But if you have this in your starting hand, you don't have to. You could keep this in hand, and if you draw into another Grade 1, it's good, you could ride into that. If not, you could ride into this. So it does make your first hand less awkward. With this, it does make it very, 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 very awkward. And with that, I actually kind of dislike it. Alright, then we go to the other Crazy Heroes. We have the 4 copies of the Dudley Heal. This is Dudley Lindsay. If you don't know her, now you know her. This is the Grade 0 Dudley Heal, which is searchable with Jelly Beans. When this card came out, that was the moment that we were able to start turboing into the GB8. This and the Grade 4 G-Guard. Lioness boy. So in the combination with these two, you are able to start turboing. And that's amazing. What she does is, except being a beautiful card and a Dudley, she also has the ability that if you discard this to G-Guard, then you could remove this and a card from your drop zone, you bind them, and then you could countercharge or soul charge. So she is a good countercharger, especially in combination with the new queen, the new Evita queen, because she needs a counterblast. So you could countercharge first and then counterblast with Evita. Now we go to the draws. We have the 4 vanilla draws first. So these does nothing, but they are beautiful art, and yeah, we just play them. And we also play the, you know, having the extra shield from maximum and this ability. You remember that your opponent needs to be Grade 3. You could make this a 15k shield. So that's insanely good. And that's actually it. That's it. And then we have the 3 PGs being Spees being yeah, it's Merlin. What do you want me to say? I mean, this card have been with me from the starts. And Overtrigger. We play the Pure Elemental Overtrigger. Why? Because if you play the Dark State Overtrigger, you attack with your Vanguard and you want to under-hit their Vanguard, then sometimes you can't do that. Why you can't do that? Because of the fact that they will be on less attacks. You don't get it? I will explain it. So if you have the Dark State Overtrigger and you attack, the Dark State Overtrigger gives your opponent 10k, gives your own Vanguard 10k in a crit. So you could not undercut them because you have to hit them. It doesn't matter the 100 million power, you could give that to whatever, but you have to give them the damage. And because of that, it's actually quite bad. So you would rather not do that. And that's why we play this one. If I have any other option to play, like for an example, if I could play the overtrigger from, let's say, Lyrical, I would do that. I would play Lyrical. If I have the option to play the one from Stokea, I would play the one from Stokea. Although the one from Stokea gives the front plus 10k, so that's bad as well. But at least you don't hit them with a crit right away, because you could put the crit on something else. But yeah, I mean, Dragon Empire would be fine, because you could restand your Vanguard, and with that, you basically could get more cards to your hand during GB8 turn before that, and you could attack another Vanguard. I mean, yeah, there are different, there are like overtriggers that you could play, but the one from Dark State is actually the least favorite when it comes to this deck. This one is good as well, because if your opponent gets the overtrigger, you could also get the overtrigger to hit them back. As long as they don't have a PG, you could actually still kill them with your overtrigger. You just need to recycle it. And to recycle it, you need Wonder Boy. And I will show you a trick later on that you could do with Wonder Boy if you play him in this deck, to even set up this card defensively after your GB8 turn to survive their turn and then hit them back with another GB8 turn. But that's iffy, because you will not have that much cards left in your deck. But again, it is possible. And that's basically the deck. If we go into the extra deck, I think it's self-explanatory. Start with Formido. Formido's Formido. He's good to just get rid of your opponent's field, and he's good to get free strides. He fill up the soul, so set up a good for Formios. If you play the Mega Colony matchup, these are basically the two boys that you want to play. He gives you soul, retire the field, and give you the 3 strides, so you could keep riding without having to drop anything to stride. And Formios will be the one who Soul Blasts to give you the attacks. So his ability is, of course, you need to score the same card as your Vanguard to stride into him, and then if you do though, it's kind of the same as an ultimate stride, but it's not, because it doesn't cost you your deck, but it's exactly the opposite. After that, when this card becomes face up in your G-zone, you can stride without paying the cost for striding, but you could not flip this card face up open with a skill of your strides, so that's important. Then the ability, when this enters place, you can +1, your opponent chooses the same number of cards or rare cards from their field, and they retire them as the number of open rare card circles you have. If they retire 3 or more, I think 3, yeah? Yeah, if they retire 3 or more, you soul charge 5 and you draw a card. So it's good. The one downside to this card is it doesn't flip something face up, so it makes it sometimes awkward for you to get the right cards face up in your G-zone. Alright, and then we jump into Formios. Formios is again a very, 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 very good card. When the unit attack that has or a rare guard attacks that has a force marker beneath it, if that attack did not hit, you may Soul Blast 2. You may flip something face up from your G-zone, you draw a card, and you call something from your hand to open a rare guard circle. No, just a rare guard circle, which means call from hand, which means could work around cards like Gridora. So that's it. Next, we have Galligabrius. Galligabrius is an attacking unit, but also a defensive unit. I will explain. This unit activates its ability when it attacks onto a Vanguard or a Ragard or whatever, which means that you could attack with this and you could call a double Honoli. You could attack with this and you could call a double Fiona. You could attack with this, you call a Fiona and a Honoli. You could attack with this and call whatever you like. So this is very, 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 very effective. What his ability is, when this unit attack, you Soul Blast 1 and you call 2 cards from your deck to a rare guard circle. They do need to be open rare guard circles, and then you shuffle your deck. And then all of your units get boost, which is good as well if you really, really want to hit them hard. Then the second ability, when the rare guard attacks, it gets plus 10k until the end of battle. It goes to the bottom of your deck. That's why these are very nice, because you could say, yo, plus 10k attack, go to the bottom of the deck. He's good in lots and lots of matchups. And then we have the the 2 copies of Violence Ace, and of course then we add the 2 copies of Merendol into the mix. So play 2 on 2. Violence Ace is a card that was kind of made for the GB8. So what this card does is once per turn you count +1, you flip something face up from your G zone, and then you draw as much cards as face up cards you have in your G zone. So if you stride into this after G guarding, you draw lots and lots of cards. And with maximum being your Vanguard, you're good to go, bro. You are good to go. Then he has the ability that you could Soul Blast to give one of your units extra 10k. So you Soul Blast 1 to give power, Soul Blast 1 to give power. This ability is also good if you have some of the breaches in your soul and you don't really have to use tier from your hand, then basically he becomes a very effective unit to get rid of those cards that you have in your soul. So as you can see, this deck needs lots and lots of skills to be played. It's not an easy deck to pilot. The second ability of him could also become very effective, especially again in the main colony matchup, which is one of your hardest matchups. This boy has the ability that when the number of your opponent guardians become 2 or more, you count +1, you put a card or a rare guard into your soul and you call something from your hand to rare guard circle. This is devastating, especially if you use it with Breach, because with Breach they have to intercept and sometimes they have to guard with 2 cards or more, because if their interceptor is not enough, then they basically have to drop something else or they take the damage. So it's a very good card. Merendol, on the other hand, is his little brother. This is your flip target for him, so you have more Craze face up in your G zone, and if you don't have any CB left, or you don't have a counter charge or whatever, then you go to Merendol, and Merendol abilities just act once per turn. You flip something from your G zone face up, and then when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you may give one of your rare guards an extra 5k for every card you have face up in your G zone. It's not about the hit a bet, it's not about whatever, it's all about flipping something from your G zone face up without having to attack, without having to pay a cost of a Counter Blast or a Soul Blast or whatever. So that's why Merendol is important. And of course, last but definitely not least, it's the 2 copies of the beautiful GB8. This boy does kind of all the work, but also not all the work, because he himself does nothing. Most of the times he doesn't even attack. He only attacks in the Narukami matchup and Kagura matchup, because with 3 G-Guards they could retire your field, so that's why you use them. This card is crazy good. It's basically whenever something attacks, you give one of your units the skill. That unit get 10k, and then at the end of the battle that unit attacks or boost, you could put that unit and a card from your hand into your soul, and you call something from your deck to an open rare guard circle, and that's it. That's basically it. With all of that being said, this is, in my opinion, one of the most unfair cards in the game, which makes this deck one of the most unfair decks in the game. Now we talk about that fact. So what do you mean, D-Boy, one of the most unfair decks in the game? Well, the fact that this deck could do a lot, like defensively, offensively, and when you hit your GB8 turn, the only thing that could stop it is your opponent getting an overtrigger. That's basically it. But it happens so many times, like during the tournaments, during the last 3 tournaments. I played 3 tournaments in this season for Premium, Germany, Belgium, and France. And in France, I lost 3 times, 2 of them to an overtrigger. In Belgium, I lost 2 times, 2 of them into an overtrigger. And in Germany, I lost 3 times, 3 of them to an overtrigger. So out of the, 3, 5, 7, 8 times that I have lost at least 6 of the 8 to an overtrigger. Defensively. Offensively, the overtrigger is fine, but defensively. And that's insane. Like, even with the amount of damage that you could give them, like putting them on 2, they go to another 2 and then they overtrigger, or they miracle overtrigger, like in the 5th and the 6th damage. And if they hit overtrigger, then you can't do much. You have to gamble on you getting your overtrigger, so you have to go spike bouncer, and hope that they have lost their hand. And then you attack, and then you overtrigger, and then you give 2 times the 100 million to the same unit that's chilling on force 2, and then you attack, and then you kill them. That's the only option. But sometimes they still have a PG, because they will take all of your attacks, because most of the competitive players know that this deck could not be stopped except by having an overtrigger. So yeah, that's the reason why it's unfair. For the combo video and the match, of course there will be separate parts, and we will go in between. So you will see this deck first, then you go see some premium decks, and we will go back. So it will not be like this one, then part 2, then part 3. Now I will show you one thing, just one thing. I will show you how to set up the overtrigger. To set up the overtrigger, you need to play Wonder Boy, which we don't play in this deck. But if you play the Wonder Boy, at least a copy of him, just one Wonder Boy, that's enough. There are other cards that you could add into the deck as great ones. I didn't show you the great ones because there are a lot of combination. You could play Dudley William to move the markers. You could play cards like Commander Gary Cannon if you really want to rush in the early game. You could play, of course, cards like Acrobat Verdi to search with your Mega Trainer, and with that you could add Rising to the hand. But you could also play the new Acrobat Verdi because it's a good right target and Rygar to call, because it could search your grade 3, including your Jelly Beans, and with your Jelly Beans you could, of course, search up your heal triggers. So there are lots and lots and lots of cards that you could play. But of course you could also play Frog Raider if you play a charger unit. But most importantly, we have the Wonder Boy. So what you do during your GB8 turn is you will try to filter your deck as much as you can. And what you want to leave in your deck is you want to have a Wonder Boy left, and you want to have a Spike Bouncer left. So let's say that your deck is looking like, for an example, and this one is already in your soul. If it's in your soul, you just put it into the drop zone, or it's already in your drop zone. Of course, you could recycle it with your G Guardians, but we're talking right here about just the fact that you could put it during your GB8 turn. If your opponent gets their overtrigger, then you could basically set up your overtrigger as well, that you could drive check or even damage check. So what you have right here, so this is how your deck looks like, right? And you have this left in your drop zone. And you have 6 cards. You shuffle, blah 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 blah, and then yeah, then you basically will attack, and then you will call the Wonder Boy. So right here you call Wonder Boy, you activate the skill of Wonder Boy to put this to the bottom of your deck. And normally you have called this with Breach, so you could still get a draw out of it. So this is your deck. So you have the overtrigger left to the bottom, and then you have some other cards. So then you draw with Breach, then you attack with this, you put this on a card from your hand into your soul, and then you will be searching for your deck, and you will call the Spike Monster. And then you have 4 cards left, or even 5. It works with 5 as well, but 4 is better because you could set up the way you want. So now you count +1, you soul +1, and then you check the top 4 and you call one of them. You don't have to, because look at the same number of cards, and then you may call up to. So it's pretty much up to you. You could call up to 1. So you could also choose to not to call, but then you could put them into the bottom of your deck the way you want. So you could put this to the top of your deck. And as long as you don't have draw triggers left, because you could attack with them during the GB8, you'll be good to go. So you could just put the overtrigger to your top of your deck, and you could leave it at that. And that's when you end your turn. If you have, for an example, 5 cards left in your deck, right? So if you have 5 cards left in your deck, you shuffle and you get the top 4, and then you say, like, I will put this like this, so this would be the overtrigger, and then you have 1 left on the top of it, but you're on 5 damage, or you just want to try damage check your overtrigger as a first damage, you could still attack with this, and you could put it into your soul, count +1 to draw a card, then you draw with this not an overtrigger, and then the next damage will be the overtrigger. So yeah, this is insane because you basically could set up your overtrigger defensively or even offensively, as I said. But the problem with setting it offensively is if you attack with your Vanguard, you will lose, but defensively is fine. But what will happen right here is that you don't have cards left in your deck, but you could win by time. You could win by those kind of insane rules. So your opponent would already be on 5 damage, you're on 3 or 4, then they do their shenanigans, they do their turn, they attack into you, and you will be like, overtrigger. So it goes away, and you draw a card. And then when it's your turn again, you draw for turn, and you're left with 1 card in your deck. With the 1 card in your deck, you could not really do much, because you will have to call a bunch of Wonder Boys from your hand to set up your deck again, because Breach, by putting a card into the bottom of your deck, you will have to still draw a card. If we'd have a strat that could put like Drop Zone or Soul back to our deck, that would be effective, like Dark Irregular has, but we don't have that. We have cards that put cards from your deck back to the bottom of the deck. That's good as well, but for now, this is a way for you to set up your overtrigger defensively if you want to, and it will save you a turn. But I don't like winning that way because of timeout and stuff like that, so I didn't play the Wonder Boy for this strategy. But again, like, there are lots and lots of secrets when it comes to this deck. I will not give you all the secrets, definitely not, but I like to share some with you guys. And if you guys want to know more, again, as I said, this deck is insane. If you guys want to know more, you could always ask me on Facebook. I use only Facebook as in social media, and I'm very easy to find because I'm the only hard Hayawi up there. That's it for this video. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that it didn't make it too long for you guys, but yeah, there's again so much to talk about when it comes to this deck. That's it. That's really it. Stay tuned for more video. Thank you for watching, thank you for supporting us, and thank you for dealing with a period that we didn't upload much videos, but now I do have time, and I always have time for you guys, but now I do have the materials that I want to share with you guys because I didn't want to share it during the season itself. And yeah, that's basically it. Thanks you again. Until next time.